Chapter 8. Blackfish, White Pearls. Mrs. Sype came in first. I could see that she didn't want to be there. There was a strange look in her eyes. Her elbows were close to her sides, and her hands felt in front of her for something that was not there. There was a gun in her back, one of Carol Donovan's small guns, held in Carol's small hand. Carol had a job to do, and she didn't care about Mrs. Sype. Matter came last. He was full of whiskey, which made him brave, and his stupid little eyes shone in his red face. He pointed his gun at me and grinned nastily. Carol Donovan pushed Mrs. Sype to one side. The older woman fell down on her knees in the corner, her eyes empty of feeling. Sype stared at the Donovan girl. She was a girl and young and pretty, and he didn't know what to do about it. He had never known girls like that. He could shoot men to pieces, but a pretty girl. The small, dark, white-faced girl stared at him coldly and said in her hard little voice,
"All right, Dad. Put the gun down. No surprises now."
Sype didn't take his eyes off her. Slowly, he put his big, heavy gun on the floor.
"Kick it away from you, Dad."
Sype kicked it. The gun went across the wooden floor and stopped near the middle of the room.
"That's right, Dad. You hold him, Rush, while I get the Dick's gun of him."
The two guns turned, and the hard gray eyes were looking at me now. Matter went a little closer to Sype and pointed his gun at Sype's stomach. The girl smiled, not a nice smile.
"Clever boy, huh? You're really good looking for trouble, don't you? But you made a mistake. Your thin friend had a little map in his shoe, and you didn't find it."
"I didn't need one," I said, and grinned at her. I tried to make it the kind of grin that would keep her looking at me, because Mrs. Sype was moving slowly across the floor on her knees, getting closer and closer to Sype's gun all the time.
"You're finished now. You and your big smile. Put your hands up while I get your gun. Up, mister."
She was a girl, about 1 meter 60 tall and about 55 kilos. Just a girl. I was 1 meter 80 and nearly twice as heavy. I put my hands up and hit her on the head. That was crazy, but I was sick of the Donovan Matter guns, the Donovan Matter talk. She stepped back and her gun went off. A bullet burned my side. She started to fall very slowly. It seemed unreal. Mrs. Sype got Sype's gun and shot her in the back. Matter turned quickly, and at once Sype jumped towards him. Matter jumped back and shouted and pointed his gun at Sype again. Sype stopped, and the big crazy grin came back onto his face. The bullet from Sype's gun had knocked the girl forward, and her head hit my body. I saw her face for a moment as she fell back again to the floor. A strange face that I had never seen before. Then she was on the floor at my feet, small, deadly, and dead, with redness coming out from under her, and the quiet woman behind her on her knees, with the smoking gun held in her hand. Matter shot Sype twice. Sype fell forward, still grinning, and hit the end of the table. The purple stuff he had used on the sick fish went all over him. Matter shot him again as he was falling. I pulled out my gun and shot Matter in a place that would be painful but wouldn't kill him. the back of the knee. He dropped to the floor. I put handcuffs on him before he even started to make a noise. I kicked some guns away and went over to Mrs. Sype and took the big gun out of her hands. It was very still in the room for a little while. A little grey smoke from the guns went slowly up to the window in the roof. I heard the sound of the sea and the wind outside. Then I heard another sound nearby. It was Sype trying to say something. His wife went to him, still on her knees. There was blood on his lips. He smiled up at her and said very quietly, "The Moors, Hattie. The Moors." Then the smile disappeared from his face and his head fell to one side on the wooden floor. Mrs. Syme touched him, then stood up very slowly and looked at me calmly, with dry eyes. She said in a low, clear voice,
"Will you help me carry him to the bed? I don't like him here with these people."
"Sure," I said. "What was that he said?"
"I don't know. Something about the fish, I think. It doesn't matter."
I lifted Syme's shoulders and she took his feet and we carried him into the bedroom and put him on the bed. She crossed his hands over his body and shut his eyes. She went over and closed the curtains.
"That's all. Thank you,"
she said, not looking at me.
"The telephone is downstairs."
She sat down in a chair beside the bed and put her head down on the bed cover near Sype's arm. I went out of the room and shut the door. Matter's leg was bleeding slowly, but he wasn't in danger. He stared at me, crazy with fear, while I stopped the bleeding. He would walk again. Maybe not as well as before, but well enough to climb the steps one day to a man who waited with a rope, ready to put it around his neck. I went downstairs and stood looking at the two cars, then down the hill towards the sea. I didn't think anybody had noticed the shots. There was probably a lot of shooting in the woods around there. I went back into the house and looked at the telephone, but didn't touch it yet. Something was worrying me. I lit a cigarette and stared out of the window, and a ghost voice said in my ears, "The Moors, Hattie. The Moors." I went back upstairs into the fish room. Matter was making a lot of noise now, but what did I care about it? The girl was dead. None of the tanks was hit. The fish swam peacefully in their green water, slow and peaceful and easy. Like me. They didn't care about Matter.